Hey guys, Tim here, Big Dog Forge. Welcome back. It's good to see you in the shop again. So this time around, we're going to be working on a OPINEL knife. And we're going to replace the blade from the factory with Damascus. And it's a request friend of mine. He sent me a couple of these and asked if I would do one for him and send it back to him. The only knife that I will ever be doing that I will be selling or sending out for now. Maybe you never say never, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. We're going to get out into the shop. We're going to take some of the 1,000-layer Damascus billet, and we're going to reshape that into a knife blade for an OPINEL knife, and we're going to see how that comes out. Give it a little Damascus blade, and then we can get it sent off. This is a thing I'm doing for Philip Taylor, subscriber of mine, long-term subscriber. He has made several suggestions and a lot of support for the channel, and it's the least I can do for him. So Philip, thank you very much for everything that you've done for the channel, and this one's for you, buddy. All right guys, stick with me. Let's see how this goes. Okay guys, before we get started, a little explanation about this 1,000-layer billet. It's actually closer to probably 2,700 layers. You see number 1 up there. It's the 1,000-layer billet, and we cut it into 3 pieces. Number 2, we stacked it up and we forge welded it together into a block represented here by number 3. We turned it on its edge where we drew it out. We flattened it from the edge so we could get all 3,000 layers of edge pattern, which is number 4 here, and that's what we're cutting our knife blade from. So you're seeing all 3,000 layers stacked up through the side of the knife rather than layers going from side to side. Thought I'd make a more interesting pattern. So I call it the 1,000-layer billet, but it's really more like 2,700. Because you lose some from fire scale loss and you grind some off, so somewhere between 2,700 layers. Okay, I hope you took notes. There'll be a test later. Anyway, let's get to this, guys. Just a quick explanation because there were a lot of questions on this, so there you go. All right guys, that's the OPINEL knife we're starting with, and here's one disassembled, and that's the blade we'll be replacing. So we're going to take our 1,000-layer Damascus challenge billet, which is, like I said, closer to 2,700 layers at this point, and we're going to get it into the forge. We want to forge it down closer to the size of the blade to maintain as many of those layers as possible. We want to keep as much of that in there, and I didn't want to just do a material or stock removal and lose a bunch of that. So I think a fine pattern in this blade is going to look a lot better than a bolder pattern anyway, and this will give us a little finer pattern, being such a small blade. And it's a pretty cool looking pattern. I really like it. But we have to get it down to that shape first, so between scrapping, narrowing that up, and then we get it under Floyd the press. You guys have been wanting me to paint something pink on Floyd, or paint him pink, so I have Pink Floyd in my shop. I may do that. Got to get my googly eyes on there as well. But anyway, we got a piece of it's like 1/4 inch or 3/16 I think is that kiss block that we're using to narrow this thing down with to get it closer to the blade thickness. We got less grinding to do, but enough material on there we can grind to give us an interesting pattern. And we get it back under Scrappy, and he can do our cleanup and plenishing and straightening for us. He does a really good job at that. It doesn't take long. We got a 1-inch round as a kiss block to get our 1-inch width. That blade is just under 1 inch. That's a piece of stainless steel. I use it because it's good and tough, and it holds up really well as a kiss block. And we're going to straighten them out here, plenish it up a little bit. There we go. That's our blade material. We're going to turn the forge off and stick it in there and let it anneal until that forge cools down. So we're several hours later here, and we're going to knock off the fire scale from this thing so we can get it into the ferric chloride. And we started off with like a 36 grit soft disc, and we ended up with a, I don't know, it was probably a 60 grit disc. It was kind of worn out. Tried to get some of the lines out of it. I wanted to see if I could see some pattern in this thing so I could figure out the best place to cut my blade from. And it ended up being just down towards the end. You guys probably can't see any of this. You can't see that. But that's okay. You can see a little bit of it. You can kind of see that pattern in there a little bit. So we're going to take our felt marker and outline the original blade. We took it over to the bandsaw. I don't think I showed this, but cut off, you know, just that rounded end, and went after it with a angle grinder here, just to knock it down. And this material is still a little bit tough, so it didn't grind too fast, but that was good. It kept me from grinding into my lines, and I kept going back and putting my blade on there and outlining it again, so I didn't overgrind and take too much material off. I wanted to leave just a little bit extra, because I know that in grinding the bevels and things like that, I was gonna, you know, keep taking material off, and I didn't want to go too far. And like I said, I was pretty excited about this thing, so I was moving along pretty quickly here. And something I've been meaning to do for quite some time now, and I finally got the time to do it. And this is the only knife that I've made or am making that is going to be shipped out. So I'm taking my time here and making sure that it's as best as I can do, you know, being the novice knife maker. But it was hard to hold myself back and not rush through it, just because I wanted to see the end product. So anyway, this is my ink marker, blue Dykem, and a pencil. Now it's just a felt pen. Anyway, and we're using a drill bit and scribing a line down the center. Now this jig, I built this specifically for this blade, and I set it up at an angle to match the angle of the OPINEL knife blade. So we just got to grinding on the bevels on this thing. And it was a little bit frightening, only because it's a small blade anyway. But as I ground both sides and it got thinner and thinner and I got closer to those lines, it was a little bit frightening. I didn't want to overheat it too much, because I was afraid it was going to warp it on the grinder. And a little clean up my hand. There we go. You can see that big square tab on the end there. I left that on there so I could clamp it in my little jig and get the blade as close as I could. And let's get close. And now we're gonna remark it. Make sure we're still right there. Those shoulders are pretty important. They interact with the workings of the knife handle to hold the blade open and closed. So that pivot point and those shoulders are crucial. They're going to have to be exact to get this thing to work the way it did before I started. Alright, so we center punched our hole and got our hole drilled in there for our pivot point. And what I did is I lined up the original blade with the new blade with a drill bit going through both of them, and it was to use that original blade as a guide to file down to. So these this tab and these shoulders came out as close as I could get them, because I knew it was going to be really crucial. And this was a little nerve-wracking, because, you know, I could just ruin the whole thing at that point, but seemed to come out okay. Keep our fingers crossed. I'm hopeful. And working on these small blades is, man, it's a little hair-raising. You never know when something's going to grab a grinder or go flying out of your hand. It's tough to hold on to that stuff. So, warming up the blade, we're going to get it into that oil. That vase that you saw is full of fresh peanut oil. And my ammo can, the oil in it seems to be bad, and I didn't have a place to put it, so I just used this to quench in. It's a little classy. Classy fella going there. Yeah. Alright. And it did not warp. surprised, as thin as it is. And it hardened up real good. Very happy about that. Back to the belt grinder. We got to clean off all the scuzz from the quench. And it really wasn't too bad. That fresh oil like that, it doesn't leave too much on the blade. But I took it down a few grits. I wanted to polish it up as much as I could before I got it into the tempering oven. And you notice that after every grind it goes in the water, just trying to keep it from overheating and taking the hardness out of it or over tempering on the belt grinder. There we go, getting closer. And I did a final polish here. I think that's like a worn out 800 grit belt, and I just wanted to get some of the lines out of this thing before it went in there so I could see the colors really well. Make sure we're getting it the right color. So I'm going to throw this in the tempering oven at right around 400 degrees for an hour, and I did that 2 times, and this is it coming out after the second go around, and it came out pretty good. A nice color to it, and it was really even. Doesn't look that way so much because of the lights in the shop here, but as you change angles you can see that that color is really even all the way across that thing. So yeah, I was really happy about that. Very hopeful. Alright, let's stop looking at it and start working on it. Alright, so back to our really fine, I think, like I said, it was an 800 grit belt, and it's been used and worn out, and so it's pretty much polishing kind of a thing, taking very little material off and keeping it really cool. Alright, there we go. And we took some 1500 grit sandpaper and sanded all of the cross lines out of it, got them all going the length of the blade, polished it up real good. And we went into the ferric chloride 10-minute cycles, and we did that 3 times. We pulled it out in between each one, washed it off with some double-aught steel wool, went back in 3 times like I said. This is our final cleanup, and I'm using some 1500 grit sandpaper to clean this guy off with and see what our final etch looks like here. And there we go. And you can see where my layers that I stacked together are. It's kind of cool. Some interesting grain in there. It's really awesome. I love that. Alright, so we get some oil on this thing. Keep it from oxidizing, corroding, whatever, rusting up on me. Things will rust up pretty quickly. You leave them out, so I get some oil on it. Make sure that doesn't happen. Alright, the oil didn't seem to have any effect on the pattern or discolor it or take anything away, so that's good. And when I started assembling this thing, I realized my blade is just a little bit thicker than the other one, and I went ahead and decided to assemble it and see how this would go and see if it would actually fit and work and lock and all that. And it works, it locks, but it's a little bit thick, and you can see it doesn't open quite as far as the original, so I need to file that shoulder down a little more, maybe grind it down, and my tip needs to be refined a little bit, and I need to thin the blade out, so I'm going to do a little bit of regrinding on this, but for now, there you go. Alright, I'm going to get that regrinding done and we'll take a look at this thing. Alright guys, well that went about like you'd expect. I went out to do some regrinding on the thing and I ended up grinding a little too much off of it. It's a little bit smaller than it used to was, and It's not too bad. This camera won't focus on this thing, but you saw the footage there a minute or so ago. So anyway, this is no good. I can't have that. It's not the right size. It's oddly shaped. It's barely holds an edge. So this is what I did. All right, 2.0. We had to do it a second time. All right, so I'll stick some footage in right here so you can see that blade a little closer, because this camera won't do it. All right, guys, so there it is. And here is the original. Let's get this guy spun around this way. There we go. And you can tell the difference. Get these blades up here so you can see them. You can tell the difference in the length of the blade, the width of the blade. One on the bottom is much shorter. The one on the top is actually pretty darn close to the original blade size and shape. There we go. So, you know what they say, take that little bit extra time to do it right the first time. You don't have to do it twice. But you know, practice makes perfect. All right, so this one is going to be dropped in the mail to Philip Taylor, and this one I'm going to keep for myself. They're the only two Damascus OPINEL carbone knives in the world that have my 1,000-layer Damascus billet as a blade from the 1,000-layer Damascus challenge, which you can watch right here on my channel. All right, guys, so there you go. Philip, I'll get that in the mail to you real soon. Excellent. I think we're going to call it good for this time around. Really appreciate you stopping by Big Dog Forge. Remember, like, share, subscribe. I'll leave a couple of videos for you. That's a 1,000-layer Damascus challenge. I put a random one right there. That's the button to Patreon. If you want to go to Patreon and become a patronizer of the channel and help us make more videos that are awesome and cool like this one. And then right there, you can subscribe in the face of Big Dog right there. All right, so thanks for stopping by, guys. I really appreciate it. Take care, be safe, and we'll see you next time right here at Big Dog Forge. Bye-bye now.